Hey guys, King here, back with some more Monster Hunter Rise info. We have some more Silkbind attacks for 4 more weapons that are going to be in Monster Hunter Rise. The 4 weapons we're going to be taking a look at today will be the Greatsword, Gunlance, Insect Glaive, and the Switch Axe. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's first take a look at the Greatsword. It was always able to deal massive damage on the ground, but now it's taken to the air. It's great to see that they incorporated one move from World, which is the shoulder charge. The utility of this move was great because you could evade attacks and even go through roars if you timed it correctly. The true charge slash was also included as well, which I think was a good idea because it would have been a disservice not to include this move. What we're going to do now is look at the first Silkbind attack for the Greatsword. This one is called Power Sheathe. This Silkbind attack looks very similar to Lion's Maw, which was in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. So the main difference between Lion's Maw and Power Sheathe is that Lion's Maw will increase your attack for 1 strike, whereas Power Sheathe will increase your attack for a short period of time. Now we're going to move on to the next Silkbind attack, which is Hunting Edge. This attack is pretty straightforward as it just is an attack and doesn't provide any buffs. One thing I've always appreciated about the Greatsword is how simple and powerful it is. Going into Monster Hunter Rise, I am happy to say that nothing has changed. What we're going to do now is take a look at our next weapon, which is the Gunlance. Similar to the Lance, it is a good balance of offense and defense, with the added ability of blowing stuff up. This clip here shows that when you're using Wyvern Fire, you're able to guard incoming attacks. This is a welcome change, as being able to guard attacks because your shield's out in front of you just makes sense. What we're going to do now is take a look at the first Silkbind attack called Hail Cutter. From the Monster Hunter Rise's website, it says that each time you use this attack, it reduces the cooldown time of Wyvern Fire. Let's take a look at the gauges here. So this one here is for the Wyvern Fire, and this one here is for the Worm Stake, which they incorporated from Monster Hunter World. I really like that they added the Wyvern Fire gauge so that you can know exactly when you can use the move once again. Also, if you haven't noticed, you can refill your shells in the air with this attack. Let's move on to our next Silkbind attack, which is called Guard Edge. One of the major problems of Gunlance is that when you use shelling frequently, you always have to sharpen. It's good to see that you won't have to use that many whetstones anymore. I am curious to see how much sharpness it's going to restore. For example, would I gain the same amount of purple sharpness back as I would if I was using a green sharpness weapon? That pretty much sums up the Gunlance. What we're going to do now is move on to the Insect Glaive. I'm actually looking forward to using this weapon quite a bit right behind the Hunting Horn. Many of the moves that are shown here are pretty standard and you've seen them before. It looks like Insect Glaive still has its very strong ground game. But we all know the main reason why people pick up the Insect Glaive is so that they can fly into the air. So what we're going to do now is look at one of the first Silkbind attacks, which is Silkbind Vault. The mobility of the Insect Glaive in the air is already great, but with Silkbind Vault, it becomes even better. Along with more mobility, you also have more options. So what Silkbind Vault allows you to do is follow up with a jumping slash, a jumping advancing slash, or even a mid-air evade. Moving on, we're going to take a look at the next Insect Glaive Silkbind attack, which is Recall Kinsect. As the name implies, you're able to call back your Kinsect while dodging. As soon as it returns, it will perform a spinning attack that scatter healing extracts. Its stamina will fully recover once it gets back to its master. On Twitter, I've been noticing a lot of criticism for the Insect Glaive in this showcase of Silkbind attacks. I believe people were disappointed that all the other weapons so far have gotten actual attacks with the Silkbind attacks, whereas the Insect Glaive received more utility moves. I understand exactly where they're coming from and why they may be frustrated. I'm speculating that there's going to be more than 2 Silkbind attacks, so in the future we may see more for the Insect Glaive. For now, all we can do is wait on the Monster Hunter Rise team and wait for the demo to drop. Now we're going to take a look at the last weapon that we have for today, which is the Switch Axe. Before we go any further, I just wanted to point out this armor that the character's wearing. I'm really interested in seeing which monster you can make this armor set from. The armor looks like a metal cat, so I'm kinda curious as to what yokai it's taken from. I've always appreciated how easily the Switch Axe can switch between 2 modes. It's a fairly technical weapon, but taking the time to master it is well worth it. Let's take a look at one of the new Silkbind attacks that the Switch Axe is going to get. This one is called Invincible Gambit. During this move, you're immune to flinching or being knocked back, even by the most fiercest attacks. Because the Switch Axe doesn't have any defensive options, I feel this Silkbind attack fits it very well. This next Silkbind attack is called Switch Charger. When using this, the wire bug launches you forward and you regenerate your switch gauge. On top of that, your switch gauge won't decrease for some time. I think both of these moves make the Switch Axe a little bit more aggressive in playstyle. Both of them really do fit the Switch Axe well. And that will bring us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, please leave a like and subscribe. Both are very much appreciated. I also stream quite often on Twitch, so if you're interested in checking that out, the link is in the description. Thank you again for watching, have a good one, and take care.